and still give it a few minutes.
Awesome. So we have some people trickling in. Welcome, everyone. We're just going to wait here before we kind of formally start, allow some people to click that link and join in. We'll just hang out. Also, you can see our pretty awesome headshots, so I wanted to give those extra time to marinate on the screen. All right. Give it about a couple, maybe half a minute to go, and then we can kind of dive into things. Awesome. I see we have a few more people joining in.
People trickling in.
Excited to learn about collaborative custody solutions for their business or trust. All right. I think we can kind of formally kick this off if the both of you are ready. So welcome everyone to our Unchained Capital Continuing Education webinar series. These webinars, you can catch them really every month, the first Friday of every month. They're designed to help empower you along your Bitcoin custody journey through education. My name is Tyler Campbell. I'm a technical director on our concierge team. And I'm joined today by Cam Stromey, who's our VP of Client Solutions, and my partner in crime on the concierge team, concierge director David Layton. Two perfect individuals to talk about collaborative multi-sig solutions for your business or trust. So most of you might be familiar with our personal vaults, our 2 of 3 multi-signature vaults where you hold 2 keys and we hold 1. We're going to learn more today about how that can be applied to a business or trust setup as well. Before we really dive in, do want to mention just a couple things since we are still on this relatively newer live Storm platform instead of Zoom. We're going to be doing a pretty comprehensive Q&A section at the end of the presentation today. So if you do have a question throughout, something that you really want to have answered by the team, please post it in the bottom right-hand questions box next to the chat. Again, that's kind of the bottom right-hand section of the screen. We're going to be doing our best to pull up those good questions and have them answered. You can also upvote questions. So chances are if you have a good question, somebody else is probably thinking the same thing. So make sure to go upvote questions that you want to have answered about today's topic as well. And then, as always, these webinars are going to be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. Also, if you do have a friend that joins late, and I'll mention this at the end as well, a replay of this webinar is going to start right at the end. So when we end the presentation, it's going to jump right into a replay. That way, if you miss something, you can certainly go back and catch it there. But with that being said, we're going to kind of formally dive in here to the presentation. We're going to kind of start off by talking about what's the agenda for today? What are we going to be covering? What are Cam and David going to give us their knowledge on? Well, first, we're going to start with the review of the key terms, a little bit of an abbreviated version of our key terms, just touching on some pretty core ideas and themes when we're talking about multi-sig and Bitcoin self-custody. Then we're going to dive into why multi-sig vaults for your business or trust. We're going to talk about why folks might want to use this multi-sig solution, how that compares to other solutions. And then we're going to actually dive into some really cool business account features, some additional features and functionality sets that are available with business accounts. We'll then take that, roll it over into a FAQ section. Before we dive into the Q&A, we figured a frequently asked questions section would be really nice, just in case we catch some of those questions you might have lingering in the back of your mind as we talk about the first couple items on the agenda. And then, of course, we'll wrap up with a Q&A. And again, make sure to list your questions in the questions box in the lower right-hand corner so we can see them. But with that being said, I want to hand it over now to David Layton, our key terms master, to start going through these key terms. David, over to you.
All right, thank you, Tyler. And thank you, everybody, again, for joining today. As Tyler pointed to earlier, typically we do a longer key terms section, but we wanted to leave a lot of time for FAQs and Q&A at the end of this. So we're just going to do an abbreviated version, shortened version that covers 3 key terms that we think applies directly to multi-sig within business accounts and something to kind of get the ball rolling into the conversation. So the first term, as always, is going to be Bitcoin address. So this is where your Bitcoin live. There's 2 examples of a Bitcoin address. One is a single signature address. This was built using 1 public key. The one on the right is going to be a multi-signature address. Multi-sig addresses are built using 2 or more keys. So looking at them, and especially looking at the QR code, you can't tell the difference. Once you spend from an address, you can get some more information that could tell whether it's a single sig or a multi-sig. But just looking at these, they're pretty identical. Balances within addresses or balances of Bitcoin are tracked on the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, which is about a 400 gigabyte database. And all Bitcoin addresses built from one or many public keys, and the entire world can see balances to verify, and that's a very important piece here, to verify the supply cap of the 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. So that is the Bitcoin address. Most important takeaway is where your Bitcoin lives. Second key term, seed phrase. So the seed phrase can be thought of as the master key. It's actually where everything is derived from or generated. Everything comes from the seed. You can think of it as literally the seed that grows into a big oak tree, and the branches go off to the wallets with the addresses. It's a fun analogy I like to use. There's a image of a seed phrase at the bottom there. It's a 24-word seed phrase. And you can also think of this as the human readable version of your private keys. The seed phrase is the most important item to protect because it can be used to restore your keys on any other device in the future. So you always want to physically secure it and protect this like it is securing and protecting your Bitcoin, because it is. All right, and we will jump over to the final of the highlighted key terms, which is wallet configuration file. So the wallet config file can be thought of as directions to your multisig address. This is always important to touch on because when you build a multi-signature address, specifically when you use Unchained as an interface or coordinator to build your multisig address, you'll be able to download a wallet configuration file. It looks like this image on the bottom. And you can take this file and go to an external or outside of Unchained multisig coordinator and regain access to your Bitcoin, regain access to your multisig wallet. So you can think of it as a recovery file. We call it the external recovery file. And it has the information that is in it would be the keys, the derivation paths, the XPubs, or you can think of it as master public keys, and then, of course, the address type and the quorum. So this is very important to secure and keep as well. And it's important to note that every vault that you have, whether it's a business vault, a personal, a retirement, they're all going to have unique wallet configuration files. So anytime you use any of the products at Unchained and you build a multi-signature wallet, you always want to save this file, back it up, preferably behind some layer of encryption in a password manager, encrypted cloud storage, something like that. So these are the key terms, the most important that we thought we wanted to run through today. And without any further delay, I'm going to pass it back over to Tyler, and we're going to jump into the next agenda point here.
Awesome. Thank you, David. That was fantastic, as always, with those key terms, especially highlighting those main key terms for us. Now we want to transition to the next item in our agenda list, why multi-sig vaults for your business or trust. And to kick off that conversation, we're going to start with really what are business accounts. So this is a perfect spot to introduce, again, our VP of Client Solutions, Cam Stromey.
Hi, everybody. Really appreciate you joining today and learning more about what we do in terms of helping businesses. It's personally one of my favorite things to do is to help an operating business to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, to really go through that process, learn about the best practices. So I'll start at a high level, and then we'll really dive into what are some of the value propositions for you, either as a business, as a family office, or to hold Bitcoin in a trust. It really boils down to our model is the most secure way that you could possibly hold Bitcoin as an organization. And you might be thinking, okay, you would expect us to say that, right? We work for Unchained, but we've really taken a first principles approach to security. And really that's a recurring theme throughout Unchained and really our philosophy. First principles in terms of security means that you hold your own keys. That is as important for an organization as it is in holding Bitcoin in a personal context or holding Bitcoin in an IRA. There's just no way around that. That is, if you've been in Bitcoin a little while, more than likely you've heard the saying, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. And I would argue it's even more important for a business if you have investors, if you have a board, you have employees, you've got colleagues, you've got a team. Not only are you responsible for securing that Bitcoin in the most responsible, most secure way possible for yourself, but you're responsible to all these other parties. They're relying on you to make sure that you've made the right choice for custody. So it's a big decision. That's what we're here to help with. We are here to help you as an organization to hold your own keys and to hold it in a way that you can feel very confident and comfortable. We recognize that we are, you may be brand new to Bitcoin, you may have some experience. All of our teams that are here to support you have that in mind, and they're ready to hold your hand through every step of the process. So the graphics we've got displayed here, you can see an example of a trust. We've got many of our clients hold Bitcoin in a trust. The trustee would control 2 keys. Unchained has the third. So a similar setup as an individual account or an IRA account. Again, how multisig works broadly is that 2 keys are required to move Bitcoin out of the vault. So just as it sounds, the trustee has complete control over the Bitcoin. Unchained never has access, but we can be here as your security partner. And then the graphic on the right, you can start to see the flexibility and the optionality that you have with our business accounts. If you've got a business and you've got a co-founder, now each of you can hold a unique key, and then Unchained can hold the thirds. That liability, that responsibility is spread out amongst multiple members of the organization. You could have 10 people on a team, and you could have multiple people that have keys and have copies of keys and different levels of access to the platform. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But really the critical takeaway here is that there's just no substitute for holding your own keys as a business. It's as critical, or even possibly more critical, that as an organization you take control of your keys, and that's what we help you to do. So, really the top 3 reasons why is this type of model valuable? Why is it truly important as a business to hold your own keys? We are actually the only firm right now helping clients at scale, institutional clients, to be able to hold their own keys. So every other model you see, you're giving up control of those Bitcoin keys. And that is just fundamentally a less secure way to hold your Bitcoin. There's massive levels of counterparty risk. There's multiple different attack vectors that you've opened yourself up to if someone else is controlling your keys. And that custodial provider is now a single point of failure. The whole goal of Bitcoin security, if you've been through our concierge onboarding for the IRA or personal, if you've talked to us in any capacity, I'm sure you've heard this idea that you want to eliminate single points of failure to make sure that it's not possible for one thing to go wrong and you to lose access to your Bitcoin. And that's what we are able to help you accomplish by using multiple keys, creating backups for those keys, using multiple vendors. There's a plethora of ways that that's accomplished, but it can only be done if you're holding the keys to your Bitcoin. The second bullet point here, permissionless access without counterparty risk. That's what you get when you get to hold your own keys. If you're not holding your keys, you're only experiencing and able to take advantage of part of the value proposition of Bitcoin. If you hold your own keys, now you have the power and the ability to, for instance, distribute Bitcoin to all of your LPs on a Sunday at 1 a.m. You can send it to whoever you want, wherever you want in the world at any time. And that is truly harnessing the power of Bitcoin as a digital bearer asset. So you always have permission. There's no one that can gate that access, not even Unchained. And that's where the second part of that comes in, permissionless access without counterparty risk. So if someone else, if you're using another institutional custody provider like Coinbase or Gemini, they're holding the keys of the Bitcoin, it's their Bitcoin, you have an IOU, essentially you are requesting access to that Bitcoin. There's a lot of counterparty risk there. In this model, you hold 2 keys, we hold 1. So you might say, well, Unchained, there's counterparty risk. But what David was alluding to there with the wallet configuration file, having that file and having the 2 keys ensures that you do not have counterparty risk with Unchained. That even if our website were to be unavailable, or even a worst case situation, we were out of the picture, you always have control of your Bitcoin. So it's an incredibly powerful security model in that respect. And then the third point, this is a 100% cold storage model. Now, this is a little tricky if you're evaluating Unchained versus the field. You'll see a lot of other institutional custody providers, and they'll market their solutions as cold storage, but they're absolutely not. If they are holding your keys, and you are accessing your account with, let's say, Gemini or Coinbase via the internet, your Bitcoin is connected to the internet 100% of the time. All that's protecting your Bitcoin is a username and password and a two-factor authentication. And that is susceptible to hacks. It's susceptible to all sorts of attacks. In contrast, again, the model that we've helped you to set up is completely in cold storage, meaning that it's completely disconnected from the internet. You hold two keys. Those keys were created offline and stored offline. They're kept in two different geographic locations. Similarly with Unchained's key, our key is created offline and stored offline, so that it's not possible to remotely hack your Bitcoin. So far and away, the most secure way that you could possibly hold Bitcoin for your business. David now is going to go into the technical support and the education we provide that I alluded to, not just during the onboarding process and setup, but really the entire time that you're partners with us.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. So technical support and education, what I want to start with, just thinking about what comes along with your experience with Unchained as a business account, coming through, whether it's concierge or whether you're doing any sort of self-onboarding, we take the technical support and just general ongoing education very seriously. It's something that we want to make sure that all of our clients, individual, business, retirement, anybody, is going to be better prepared to be that sovereign Bitcoiner on their own. But we are always here in the background to help as well. So the education gets you there on your own, but our client solutions, client services, concierge onboarding, all of our teams that are customer or that are client facing are here always to guide you through anything that you run into that would be that could potentially put you in a situation where you lose access to a key, lose Bitcoin. We are here to prevent that from happening. So I wanted to talk about a couple of scenarios that you might run into as a client or as a business account. What if you lost a key? What if you have 2 or 3 multisig and one of your keys gets lost or compromised? So we would actually help with the key replacement process, jump on a video call, walk you through the steps, show you how to generate a new key, initiate a new device, go through that whole process, and we could either help you swap out that new key into your existing quorum, or we can help you build a new multi-sig wallet. So all of those are options. We would diagnose what the issue is and walk you through the best solution. And of course, in that scenario, every key holder or every member of the business is going to need to sign off on a key being replaced. So the security aspect is something that we focus on very strongly as well. A second scenario that sometimes people run into, what if you send Bitcoin to an old address? Or what if you need to do some sort of consolidation of UTXOs from old addresses, current addresses, even if you recovered and sent to a future address? So this does happen on a semi-regular basis. Someone will send to the wrong address. Well, we would jump on a call. Again, we'd help you restore using that wallet configuration file into Caravan, which is an external recovery. It's a stateless open source piece of software that we developed to help people outside of the direct Unchained platform. And we can help with UTXO consolidations. We can help with getting Bitcoin that was deposited to an old address all consolidated into one. So these are things that Tyler, our technical director, absolutely loves doing. He's kind of an expert in all things on the back end with Caravan. So you'd probably work with him on that, or any of us. Yeah, so those are a couple of scenarios that I kind of wanted to walk through and just think if you do run into this as a client, we're happy to jump on a call and help you through that. Something else important, thinking about just very, very last step on that, thinking about UTXO consolidations or UTXO management. That's where education comes in. So we actually love to work with businesses, anybody that has a high amount of deposits, specifically when we're thinking about miners. We work with a lot of mining companies that want to secure their Bitcoin long-term in cold storage. And we come up with a UTXO strategy on when and how to consolidate the UTXOs, ongoing training with that, hands-on help if needed, UTXO selection. So certain things that you might not be thinking about when you're just depositing to an address. There's some work that we can do helping you to consolidate data. And what that does is it minimizes fees in the long term and just helps to keep a clean environment for your Bitcoin. And I've used the term UTXOs a lot as I'm saying this, and just at a very high level, that could translate into deposits. So every time you deposit Bitcoin to an address, you have a separate unspent transaction output, or UTXO, associated with that deposit. So yeah, the very last piece is just the ongoing and training and check-ins and continued education webinars like what you're on right now. So we take that also very serious, getting people all the way up to speed with being a independent sovereign Bitcoiner on their own without us, but we are always here to help.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. That's, just speaking, as a member of the concierge team, and of course we work closely with Cam and his team as well. It's really about having that human connection, right? Somebody on the other end of the phone, somebody you can talk to as you navigate this, this stuff. With great power comes great responsibility. As Cam said, 100% cold storage, the most secure way to hold your Bitcoin by far and away. But you don't have to go it alone. And that's the really, really powerful part about working with, David and myself and the rest of our concierge team. So with that being said, kind of touching on why multi-sig vaults for your business or trust, now we kind of want to dive into some features that are unique to business accounts as our next agenda item. So starting here, I'm actually going to stick with David here, just kind of touching on these first couple of points. So instead of like in-platform features, maybe these first few points are features or operations from an operational perspective that might be a little bit unique to business accounts. What happens if a key holder leaves, a business partner leaves, or what happens if you need to sign transactions from different areas? And, one business partner might be located in San Francisco, California, the other key holder, the other business partner might be located in Austin, Texas. How do you go about that? So David, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. Thank you. So touching on on business account features, easy transition if a key holder leaves. So this is all part of what we do. And I think I may have exhausted it in the last section there, just as continuing technical support. But we are here essentially around the clock to help with these types of things. So if a key holder leaves, we would basically go through authorizations from other members of the business account, get the appropriate approvals, and swap out any key that was associated to that member with a new key that is associated with the new administrator or CFO, whoever it is that joined the business. So it's something that is from an unexperienced perspective, it's pretty technical, but again, that's why we are here to jump on those calls and help with that. From our perspective, it's a very simple switch. We just need to get approvals from everyone in the organization.
Awesome. All right. So now when it comes to more like in-platform activities, right? Features that might be unique from a user interface component when it comes to your business account. Cam, you touch on some of that, and maybe we can even get into the fun part of showing how those might look as well.
Sure thing.
Awesome. So we'll start with the, adding additional members. What happens if, my organization is not just myself and somebody else, maybe I have a whole team. What happens there?
Sure. I'll jump right into that in a second. I'll start just from a little higher perspective, Tyler. I'm going to just, a unique aspect of our platform is that you're able to manage multiple types of accounts all with one login. The goal is to make it as simple and secure as possible for you to manage Bitcoin throughout your personal life, in a retirement context, and then also through the business or businesses that you own. So if we're looking at the upper right here, this is where you can toggle between a personal account, between a trust or an IRA, and then an LLC, an operating business. So in my operating business, I can go down to manage, and this is where I can invite and control who from my team I would like to have access to Unchained. You can have up to 15 members of your team have access to the platform with varying levels of access. So you can have some people that are owners or administrators, and they have the ability to create transactions and sign transactions. So they're going to be the key holders in the organization. And then you can have other folks that, maybe it's a controller and they really just need to log in, view balances, and download reports so that they can have view-only access. And then as other members join the organization, that's where right here, add member, you can simply send them an email invite. They can confirm that on there, and very easy to expand or contract the organization as you need to. And then taking a look at the keys that you have on the platform. So you can have multiple keys in the platform. Those can be used for different accounts and for different vaults. So when I say vaults, what I mean is different. I'm going to jump into a personal account just for an example's sake. But you can have essentially multiple vaults within type of account. So imagine you've got a business account. You could have kind of your short-term vault, your long-term vault, maybe one for expenses, just different ways to organize your Bitcoin. Those vaults can be controlled by the same set of 2 keys, or you could have different sets of keys for different vaults, and thus another way to control who has access to which buckets of Bitcoin.
Awesome. Love it. Love the opportunity to always be displaying what we offer in our business accounts. Just from a feature and functionality perspective, it is incredibly flexible. So no organization is too big or too small. We're here to help you out as well. You combine those in-platform features with that technical help that David was mentioning. And it's a pretty powerful 1-2 punch. Moving on from like specific account features, the next section, before we go into our freeform Q&A, and I've seen a couple questions come in through the chat and come in through the questions box. Please make sure, again, to highlight those questions in the question box. And if you see something there that you really want us to answer, make sure to upvote it as well. But before we go to the Q&A, we actually have some frequently asked questions. And as we talk about business accounts, there are some questions that come kind of top of mind. So I'm going to pitch some of these to our pros here on the call. Cam, what happens if I have more than one person that I would like to have as a key holder? What are my options? I know you just showed that just from a demo perspective. But let's say, I have 5 people on my team that I would like to be able to sign transactions at will. How do I go about doing that?
Sure. And this is a major part of the value that we provide at Unchained, because we do work with so many institutions of varying types, whether it be a family office, nonprofit, LLC, investment fund, with one sole proprietor, 2 co-founders, 10 team members. We were able to take that experience and then understand your business model, understand what your goals are and who should have roughly what level of access. And then we can help to provide recommendations. Hey, I would recommend that this person has this key. We do it this way. So the point being, we're going to customize it to whatever your needs are. But if you've got more than one key holder, let's say it's 2 of you and your co-founder, very easy, right? Each of you hold a unique key. You'll have the backup for that key, and you can store that in a separate location. So maybe, for my Trezor, my hardware device that is a representation of the key, I'm going to keep that in a safe at the office. And then the backup, the seed phrase to that device, that key, I'm going to keep that in a safe deposit box. And your business partner could do something similar, right? So he's got his own key that's completely unique. If you had a team of 4, you've got those 2 unique keys. Now, let's say I'm in control of key A. Our team can help you to create a copy of that key. So now you've got 2 Trezors or 2 hardware devices that both represent key A. There are also analog paper backups to the seed phrases for each of those keys. And then similarly for key B, you could have 2 copies of key B that 2 other individuals have access to. Very common way to organize it. Another really great way too is thinking about, okay, if you have, let's say again, for individuals that need access to the keys, you could have safe A in your office and only 2 people have access to that safe. And there's 1 key in there, key A. And then you could also either at that office or at an offsite location have safe B. And again, you've got key B in that safe. There's only 2 people that know the combination to that safe and are able to access that. And then of course the device itself has a PIN as an extra layer of protection. So those 2 members holding key B would only have access to that PIN as well. So a lot of different ways we can help you to set it up, and we'll make sure that we find a solution that balances security and complexity. That's always the balance. It's not necessarily better to have more keys or more locations or more copies or more people that are holding them. It's definitely a balance of security and complexity.
Absolutely. Awesome. That was a very comprehensive answer, and one that I think hopefully maybe answered some questions that we see come through the question box as well. When it comes to our next question, so And David, I guess I'll pitch this one up to you. How does the process work if I do need Unchained to sign? Maybe my business partner can't sign, but I can. How does that process look?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. What's the point of having that good of operational security that Cam was just describing if Unchained can just come in, route around that, and provide a signature? Well, we don't actually do that. So with a typical 2-person business account, we would just need authorizations from both parties. So that would be secure communication with the member who did not initiate the request. And there's several ways of setting that up, but we just need all parties that need to sign off on us providing a signature to give their approval, and then we would provide that signature. For larger business accounts, and that's where it gets into, safe A and safe B and PINs and more members. This is something that we'll actually discuss in depth during the concierge onboarding. And during your consultation with Client Solutions, we discuss the operational security best practices and any specific security requirements that you would need as a larger business during that onboarding process. And then I like to say operational security, it evolves. So this is something that's ongoing. If you add members, add different locations, secure locations, add devices, add keys, this can change over time. So whenever there's any change to the we'll call it a signing agreement from Unchained providing a signature, that needs sign off from all members involved as well. But the cool thing about this also, and this is kind of piggybacking on what Cam was explaining with the multiple safes, multiple members, you could have a more custom signing authorization process similar to how a multisig works. So if you have 3 members or 5 members, then maybe you could have 2 of the 3 needing to provide authorization for Unchained to sign, or 3 of the 5 members providing authorization. So you can get a lot more custom. And there's also a little bit of flexibility and customization on the secure communication method, whether it be through email to video verification and so on. So this is something that we like to touch base on when we first talk to a business account, and then during the onboarding, and then throughout the ongoing educational process.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And as that last question, one that pops up fairly common, as we all know, Bitcoin's global, right? Bitcoin's not just something that's U.S. centric. Holding your own keys is not something that exists within the confines of one nation state. So, does Unchained work with non-U.S. businesses? Cam, I guess I'll pitch this one up to you as well.
We sure do. It's one of the most fun parts of what we get to do, in my opinion, is we help miners in Europe and in the Middle East and businesses all over the world. So right now we're able to offer custody both on an individual level or on an institutional level to the majority of countries in the world. There is a list from the federal government of countries that are on their sanction list that we're unable to provide services to. But for everyone else, we're able to provide custody. And same thing goes for financial just want to touch on financial services a little bit too. In the US, in most states, we're able to provide access to our trading desk and our loans for businesses, just as we do for individuals. We're not able to provide as much of those financial services internationally yet. It just, as you can imagine, it requires going jurisdiction by jurisdiction to get the required licenses for both the ability to buy and sell Bitcoin and the ability to issue loans. Currently, we're working through that process in the US, and then we'll continue to expand internationally. But we are, for instance, in Canada, able to offer loans for businesses in some provinces.
Awesome. Thank you, Cam. And so those are some frequently asked questions that might appear common both during onboardings or even on client solutions calls. But now we can get to the Q&A portion, the last portion of the agenda. And before that, I know we do have a consultation call to action popping up on your screen now. It is going to give you a link to schedule a consultation call so you can have those discussions covering on what David was just mentioning, what Cam was just mentioning, really going in depth with our team to schedule that free consultation, learn more about business accounts, learn more about how you might be able to utilize multi-sig custody for your trust as well. So please make sure to click on that link. It's going to be kind of up in the middle, kind of in the top middle of the screen now. It's going to say a little blue button that says schedule now, and it'll take you right to that link. All right, just giving that a few more seconds up there. And now we're going to dive into the Q&A portion. And I did see some awesome questions come through in the chat as we were having this discussion, as Cam was talking about the features and David was talking about our operational processes. These questions, we're going to be answering them live. I'm going to be able to share them. They're going to pop up on the screen for you so you can read the question as well. Going through, looking at the questions that have been upvoted, there's some excellent questions here. So just from a technical perspective, I did see one that has a lot of upvotes, so I figured I'd give it an answer. Give Cam and David a second to read through the questions as well, while I start the answer to this first more technical question, more so just because I can't resist answering questions, guys. So I'm going to pull this question up on the screen. So the question is, does your external recovery file contain your actual keys? If someone was to obtain that file, could they sign and actually move Bitcoin? Could they send or spend Bitcoin? So no, that's an excellent question. That wallet configuration file, that external recovery file, is the last key term that David mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. And you can think about that, the way that we describe this file, and analogies aren't always perfect, but we do our best, is describing this file as the treasure map to your Bitcoin addresses. So having the keys, if somebody has your keys, that is the keys to the treasure chest, but they need to know where that treasure chest is located. You need to know where that treasure chest is located. You can think about our platform as reading that map for you. If you want to take that map and go to another software like Caravan, David was mentioning, or there's Sparrow Wallet, there's Electrum Wallet, there's other wallets out there, that treasure map, that external recovery file is what's going to tell that wallet interface or that coordinator interface where your multisig addresses are. So it is not just enough to have that treasure map in order to move Bitcoin. You actually do need your keys as well. So just wanted to make sure to answer that there. I know it was one that I could kind of tee off on. I'll give Cam and David a second to run through the questions as well. That was an excellent question. It did get some upvotes, so hopefully that was able to provide some value as well. Awesome. So I'm looking through the questions here. I have some that I could certainly pitch to either of you, unless David or Cam, you saw some questions come through that you're eager to answer right away.
Yeah, I'll answer Andrew's question. Appreciate the question, Andrew. So are you finding that the businesses, okay, you get it right there, great. No, I would say the majority of folks that we help, especially in the business context, are newer to Bitcoin. So, from our perspective, it's a fun experience to offer our education in terms of explaining private keys and why this custody model is superior. What motivates them to this model as opposed to a third custody? It's really that even if you're new to Bitcoin, people who are coming to us have a sense of counterparty risk, that when you have something as scarce and valuable as Bitcoin, that it is incredibly risky to let someone else control it for you. Like it kind of the analog would be, if you're going to buy gold, would you rather have the gold bar in your safe or in your hand, or would you rather be holding a paper receipt to that gold bar that is held by someone across the country in their vault, and you're trusting that they're going to provide access to that gold bar when you request it? So, Bitcoin miners especially understand the imperative to have control over their own assets. So it's really just a certain type of person that intuitively understands the additional layers of risk being taken if you're not taking control of your Bitcoin. And then this is why we set up our model this way. We understand that it is daunting at first when you're learning about Bitcoin. You're learning new tools. They're not difficult to use, but if you're using them for the first time, it can be daunting. So that's why clients who come to us appreciate having us hold a third key, be here as a security partner, and help them to learn these tools. Like Will, who's our chief product officer, will say, we learned how to drive a car, we learned how to use a smartphone, we've learned how to use different tools throughout our life. Bitcoin keys are a newer tool, but they're becoming very commonplace, and they're much less complicated than a car or a smartphone.
That's an awesome answer to that question. That's a really, really good question as well. Thank you, Andrew. I think, just as a small addendum, there's a visual that I think, I've heard it both from Will Cole on our team, as Cam was mentioning, as well as Phil Geiger, our managing director of the concierge service. And this is visual I think about quite often, where, if you do use a custodian, you're having somebody else hold the keys to your Bitcoin. Think about, how many keys are truly at play there for that custodian, that entity. Maybe at most, maybe a dozen keys securing a bunch of Bitcoin. So you think about that, that is a very concentrated amount of keys with holding a lot of wealth. When you think about a collaborative custodian, a partner like Unchained, where you hold 2 keys and we hold 1 key, you think about the amount of keys that are securing our clients' funds, it's on the order of thousands of keys. So you just have that mental framework of thousands of keys versus maybe a dozen. I mean, it really helps, I think, drive that point home even further. But Cam, that was awesome. Thank you.
The great addendum there, Tyler, and great answer, Cam.
Thank you.
I see one in here from Jeff that got a few upvotes, and I will go ahead and take that. So Jeff asks, or he said, I work for a nonprofit school / church. Are there any compliance issues that will definitely come up as I orange pill them? So that's a very good question, and something to think about, at least in the United States, where most of us are located. Bitcoin is classified as an asset similar to property. So I would say you would have to kind of dig in a little bit more on your own from a compliance perspective. But we do work with different nonprofits, 501c3s, and private institutions, organizations similar to what you're describing here, to help them custody Bitcoin in multisig. So depending on the specific location and the specific needs of the organization, I personally believe that every organization should hold Bitcoin in its corporate treasury or just somewhere as an entity. But from my experience, from our experience as a team, we have worked with similar to what you're describing here. So I would say go for it. Start the orange pilling.
Awesome. Love that. I do see a question here, unless either of you had a burning one to get to. Really interesting question that is, maybe could have been included in the frequently asked questions, one to remember for next time. For an existing account holder, the question is, if I want to convert my account into a trust, what do I need to do? Is that something, Cam, would you have a good answer to that?
Sure. And that's something you'd want to talk with your financial advisor or estate planner about. You'd still go through the typical process outside of Unchained to establish a trust in whatever type of trust formation makes the most sense for you. And then from the Unchained perspective, you would come back to us, create an account, upload the details of that trust, and onboard that trust as the entity that is then controlling that Bitcoin. And then our concierge team would help you to create a vault within that trust account, where now you are the trustee, the keys to that, and then we'll help you to control the keys to the Bitcoin in that trust. So really not much different from our perspective. You'd still need to just find a financial advisor or someone that can help you to create the trust for whatever type of trust structure makes the most sense for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Cam. I'm gonna put that one back down in the chat. I'm looking through other questions here. Thank you for the awesome questions, by the way, for those participating. Just make my way through here. And also I do want to call out at this point too, I know we might be getting near the end of the Q&A section, but there are some interesting polls that you should be able to see in the bottom right-hand side of your screen alongside the questions. So if you have an answer to poll, it is fun to provide an answer. Just to see, who else on the call might be thinking similarly. Any questions, by the way, again, still as we kind of take these Q&As on a rolling basis, if a question came to your mind, or maybe a question spurred by one of our answers, maybe had you think of an additional question, please feel free to answer or ask it in the questions box now. Wait for just a few more moments, see if anybody has any lasting questions.
I think there were a couple of great questions in the chat, and I think that Neil and Drew on our team have been doing a great job of answering those. But it might be important just to touch on the question about 2 of 3. So somebody had asked, why does Unchained go with 2 of 3? If you look at the beginning of the chat, Neil Woodfine posted an article that we recently published, specifically answering that, why 2 of 3 is kind of the way that we view multisig. And I think we've touched on it a lot throughout this webinar already, but you can get a lot more elaborate in who holds keys, where keys are stored. And then when you add the physical seeds or seed words, that can start to give people certain permissions over a specific key or set of keys. So 2 of 3 is where we've landed as the best way to secure Bitcoin. And Anything beyond that is adding some complexity and not necessarily adding any more security. Or I should say adding more complexity than security. So that's the way that we look at it. But I highly recommend anybody who wanted to dig into that a little more, take a look at that post that Neil dropped into the chat section at 10:08. Well, I should say 10:18 Mountain Standard Time this morning. So 18 minutes into this.
Awesome. I think we have this article, the Why 2 of 3 article just shared recently in the chat as well. Definitely open that, keep it in a new browser tab, or maybe keep it for some nice weekend reading as you let the information about business accounts and trust accounts kind of sit with you over the weekend after watching this presentation. By the way, I take this opportunity, since we're sharing that link to that article, the Unchained blog has been putting out some pretty awesome content recently on both technical items as well as, different things like, theoretical things, thinking about why 2 of 3 instead of other quorum sizes, information like that. Please make sure to go as a part of the continuing education, go utilize that blog as a resource for knowledge. It really, really is fantastic. We have an awesome team of content creators contributing to that blog as well. I do see an additional question that was first in the chat, migrated over to the questions tab. And we'll take this one as kind of the last question we'll answer today before we wrap up. The question is, is it possible to transfer an existing loan from a personal to a trust account? Now, I do want to preface this, unless Cam or David has a direct answer, but we have a fantastic loans team that would absolutely be able to provide more clarity on this question. I'm more than happy to follow up with a particular individual who asked this question with more detailed information on an introduction to our loans team.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that wouldn't be directly possible. You can roll over loans, but the way I understand is that you would roll over the loan from the personal to the trust. But again, yeah, like you said, Tyler, let's defer to Kevin and his team, and they'll be able to provide the particulars. Thanks, Renee.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for the really, really good questions. With that, I'm going to show you our beautiful logo again and wrap up here. Thank you again for the questions, for joining us today. Do want to highlight again that these continuing education webinars are the first Friday of every month going forward. Our next June continuing education webinar is going to be on the topic of Bitcoin fees with our senior engineer, Buck Purley, joining. Please make sure to mark that one on your calendar. We have some really exciting content coming out both on the webinar front, again, that blog as well. And if you did join just a little bit late, maybe you joined about halfway through and didn't catch this at the beginning, a replay of this presentation is going to start as soon as the webinar is ended here. So you can catch that just to make sure you go back and see anything you may have missed. And as always, we are going to be recording this and posting it to our YouTube channel. So it's going to be there for kind of more permanent viewing as well. But I want to say a huge thank you to Cam Stromey and David Layton for joining me today, really talking about everything business accounts, including features, functionality, how we're there to assist. It was really, really, really awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Of course. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone.